Alright fellas, here we are back in Pokemon Masters, and tomorrow we're going to begin the release of Rika and Clodsire. Finally, right? I mean, another Paldea Elite, well, first Paldea Elite Four member, but another member of the Paldea games, right? Scarlet and Violet. So, we're going to begin here tomorrow alongside her story event, good old Rika here. Sure. And then obviously a lot more content, but of course it's nice having Rika in the game finally. After the gems in April, probably not, but whatever. Just gonna let it be known, like, subscribe, share if you want to see more Masters content before we get into this Rika overview. So yeah, now let's actually get into the overview. Whatever. So Rika as a sync pair is pretty good. Just being blunt. She's a support sync pair with the field EX role as well. She drops on April 26th, leaves on May 16th, giving you about 3.5 weeks to pull her for the most part. About 3 weeks. Yeah, just about 3 weeks to pull her, which is good. She's ground, Paldea Elite 4 knowledgeable, and grown woman. Looking at her stats, she has 302 defense, 317 special defense, 224 speed. 6-star X does help out a lot. 342 defense, 357 special defense. HP goes nearly 800. With the 6-star EX, it's really good there. So she's got some very good stats for sure. And EX roll does help out even more, plus 20 on the defenses, level 150, more HP, right? So her stats can look really, really good, right? In total, like you get plus 60 defenses, so you're from 333 plus 60, that's nearly 400 special defense, plus 60 on 318, right? That's nearly 380, and then the HP is plus 160. It's nearly 900 health, man. So she's going to be very good, depending on how much investment you put into her. Even with 6-star X and level 150, her level of stats is still going to be really good. Okay, so yeah. Looking at her moves, she's got Poison Sting, which is a 1-gauge spammable move, which has 30% chance to poison. Poison being relatively helpful pretty much in all scenarios. She has X special defense, all of her buffing allies special defense. This is a little trend you'll notice, is that Rika can buff all core stats plus crit. This starts that out. We got special defense. Trainer move, she can, it's a 2-use move that applies move gauge acceleration and raises allies' attack and special attack by 2. Very useful for mixed supports. She's definitely she's very good for catering to characters that are on both physical and special sides, and of course any mixed characters like, well, ironically, Mixed Scout Blue, who has Flare Blitz. He's got Neo Fire Blast, right, or Blast Burn. Not too many examples of characters that are super viable just by being mixed attackers, but I mean, it does work out. I mean, there's also mixed sync moves, right, like Lance and Renegade Cynthia. Renegade Cynthia can get her offensive stats topped off by Rika. Lance can get his stats buffed by Rika if you don't have him with full investment. There's just a little bit of help, I guess, in that. Though I wouldn't say those are great examples because they don't exactly synergize too well, but still, being able to help both physical and special allies is nice. She's got her buddy move, which is Rampant Mud Slap. I don't think it's the best part of her kit, but it definitely does help provide a lot more help to her kit in general. It may be the best part. I don't know. 1-gauge move, 1 use, 20 base power, hits all opponents. Activation conditions when the user's hit by an attack move once, and then the move is deactivated afterwards. So it's very easy to activate, right? Just get hit effectively. The move never misses. It lowers target accuracy by 2, leaves the target poisoned, turns the field of play into ground zone, increases physical and special moves next of all allies by 2. Yeah, that's pretty good. Definitely. Accuracy debuffs are nice for activating multipliers like Hide and Sync, which Lodge Rika has, which I don't have that pulled up here, but Lodge Rika does have Dizzying Power, powering up her moves, the more accuracy is debuffed, and also has the innate of whatever this Hide and Sync, right? Yeah, Hide and Sync, where the more accuracy is debuffed, the more powers up her sync move. So there are a few characters that can make utilization of that. Also, Hapu. Hapu is a pretty big one too, so that's nice. And of course, the physical and special moves next, just a big burst in damage, and the ground zone is useful to all ground types. So, as stated, with her ability to buff stats mixed, being attack and special attack, her ability to apply physical and special moves next, and apply ground zone, she effectively works well with all ground type attackers, including herself again as Lodge Rika. Adaman is a very good partner. You know, Volo here, Lodge Volo, Variety Giovanni, right? Any character you pair with Rika is going to be getting a pretty big buff from everything that she can do. Probably more so than using someone like Special Costume Lyra, unless you're like Johto ramping with Signature Silver or Neo Champion Silver. So that in that scenario, I mean, doesn't really work too well, but still. Either way, Rika is pretty much your replacement for any other character on a ground team that wants a support. For the most part, she effectively replaces Courtney and the support role, which is great. It allows for more offensive strategies. Like prior, for example, you would maybe run, just as a general team, you would run maybe Ingo, Cynthia, and Variety Giovanni. That's already a pretty decent decently strength team, decently strong. Duh. But now Rika can apply Ground Zone instead. You don't have to worry too much about using Variety Giovanni's Sync move to apply Ground Zone, and you can still set Sand and still have Sand extended by Cynthia, right? So you're still not missing out on too much. You're buffing the stats that are necessary, and you're still getting the strength from like physical moves next and all of that stuff. Another example maybe like instead of Courtney, Adamant, and Special Costume Lyra, you could just replace both Courtney and Lyra with Rika, and then pair Adamant up with another more hyper-offensive partner, like Cynthia, or Variety Giovanni, or Fall Roxanne, whoever it may be, and that setup can work out quite well. She takes away effectively what ground types would need in the form of you don't want to run Courtney, so you take away needing Courtney by applying Ground Zone, and you take away the necessity of a specific support, like maybe Ingo, or any other general support, like maybe Argenta, Neo Champion Rosa, or whatever, and Rika can still apply enough things to be good in that role. Maybe not the best, right? Because obviously, like, comparing Neo Champion Rosa to Rika, like, 1-to-1, obviously, I think Rosa takes the advantage there, right? But in ground type setup specifically, Rika's a great supplement. Anyway, looking at her passives, she's got Team Trash Tank 9, restoring HP of allies when hit by an attacking move. This is just another thing that just adds to her bulk. Like, on top of her inherently good bulk stats, she's got X Special Defense for buffing her special defense, and then she's also got healing from Team Trash Tank. Really, really good stuff. She's got take hit opponent 1 of 5 stats down to 9. Love these naming conventions. It lowers a random stat by 2 when hit by an attack move. That's effectively it, right? So that's very good as well. Debuffing enemy defenses could be good for powering up ally damage. Debuffing enemy special attack or attack can be good for helping ally tanking, and obviously her own tanking. And debuffing speed can be useful for activating things like Cakewalk or Hunter's Instinct, or Chase Down. So that's pretty good too. And of course, it can be helpful for maybe some power play allies, or just good in a longer setup, maybe like the Gauntlet, where you're constantly getting attacked. Well, too bad. Now your stats are debuffed. Definitely good. I think Rika's going to be really good for the Gauntlet, and at least some of them. What's she weak to? Ice? Yeah, I think she's fine. I don't think there's many ice type attacks in the Gauntlet. Maybe Azel? I don't know. She's also got Critical Squad 1, buffing ally crit when the move is successful, so a little bit slower on the crit buffing, but she still does buff crit in general. So she's got the ability to buff attack and special attack by +4, ability to buff special defense by +4, crit to max by a certain amount of turns, debuff enemy accuracy, apply ground zone, leave the enemy poisoned. Also, this is AoE, if I have not mentioned that. Buffing physical and special moves next of allies by 2. Setting ground zone also on the sync move with the field EX roll and extending it. So she doesn't have to rely on just the buddy move here to set ground zone. She can also extend it on the sync move, which is very helpful. And of course, helping out with ally passive healing with Team Triage Tank. So Triage, I don't know how to say it, alright? And I don't care. But yeah, so there you go. That's definitely very, very nice for Rika. At least just even at 1 out of 5, right? Like, if we want to look at Rika's grid, which this is the supplement that I'm using to look at her grid, simply for the fact that I don't know where STDK is, man. Hope he's doing well. But so obviously Opponent Tools has not been updated, but we're looking here at this website. So I don't know if the URL is showable on screen, but if it's not, then there you go. Cool. Okay, so looking at her at 1 out of 5 in the grid, I'm going to assume she just has nothing, right? Yeah, just Antitoxin and Sand Shelter, so nothing crazy. But still, just even at 1 out of 5, her abilities are quite good. And we can also look at it here, right? Still, all of the things that I mentioned prior. The only thing that I'd say that Rika is really being held back by is the fact that she does not buff physical defense, which is mostly niche. I still think she is just going to be fine in taking physical attacks as well, just better in special defense, as well as not having any gauge management abilities, which is probably her biggest issue. Gauge acceleration does help, right? Of course, she does have a method of buffing gauge, but I just don't think it's really that much, especially considering most ground types are pretty slow. Outside of, like, Cynthia, Volo's, even Logic Volo's relatively slow. Like, he doesn't have any method of buffing speed. I don't think he even has... does he even have, like... yeah, he's got Sands of Time, but still. Variety Giovanni's really slow, despite the fact that you're probably going to be picking up Sands of Time 3 here to get to Sand Blaster, right? It's really just most of the time ground teams are slow. Unless you're, you know, supplementing with Fall Roxanne, who can buff speed with Grudgeful Bulldoze. Still, I think just most of the time, ground teams are very slow, and this gauge acceleration I don't think is enough to really mitigate that. But all of that, you know, the gauge problem aside, all of Rika's other abilities are still good. Mixed offensive buffing and very consistent in that. Crit buffing also very consistent. Special defense on the side. Poison, guaranteed poison, AoE accuracy debuffs, ground zone, extended ground zone, etc. And also random debuffs is definitely very, very helpful for like legendary arena scenarios and just taking less damage or helping allies do more damage. It's just a passive assistance thing. And again, passive healing with Team Triage Tank. Also, do want to note her lucky skill, her guaranteed lucky skill cookie that you can get probably in the exchange shop of her event. I haven't bothered to fact check that, but that makes the most sense. Is I believe initial synchro healing 1, which gives 20% health restoration to all allies plus herself upon using her sync move the first time each battle. So that is actually, I think it's infinite. Isn't synchro healing infinite? I don't think it's the first time, right? I think that's initial synchro healing that is infinite. I can actually look. Let's just look for a sync pair that has synchro healing, I guess. Yeah, initial synchro healing would be different. But yeah, so she does have synchro healing as her lucky skill cookie, which is very nice, restoring ally HP by 20% when using the sync move. So it is infinite. You can repeatedly use Rika's sync move for that, which is only really viable in like the gauntlet, but still, that is an option. And the 20% healing is nice, especially on top of Team Triage Tank for healing. So more healing for Rika, very nice for her bulk. Looking at her move levels here, 1 out of 5 is not that great. Looking at her at 2 out of 5, Potent Toxin, ground zone attack move damage reduction is pretty solid. Trying to move Slippery is pretty decent. Trying to move NPR is decent. Special defense all NPR, natural remedy, and group slapdash. Okay, that's actually pretty solid. I would say that her 2 out of 5 honestly is pretty good. I'm not gonna say it's great. I'm not gonna say maybe it's worth investing in or something. Also, she gets Poison Guard and Water Guard, which is actually quite solid for some legendary arenas. Anyway. These are pretty good abilities. Group Slapdash is very nice, and Slippery is very nice combined, because obviously evasion means you're not taking damage, and obviously trying to move NPR, this means you can get to up to, actually pretty much +6 evasion, right? Because Slippery obviously needs the move to be successful, but Rika's training move will always be successful because it always applies gauge acceleration, which can never fail. So even if you do have max attack and special attack and you still want to use the trainer move, it'll still activate, proccing Slippery because she's still applying gauge acceleration. So you can actually get up to +6 evasion depending on how lucky you get on training move NPR, which of course has its own caveats, right? But it's not like Rika wants to do much else. Like, of course, special defense buffing is nice. You want to use the you just want to use the buddy move once. That's really it. And then other than that, really, you don't do much else with Rika. Poison Sting doesn't do much. Doesn't really matter too much unless you really want poison and the enemies remove it. And obviously, the trainer move is probably just the best thing to go for. So fishing for trainer move NPRs to get maybe +3, +4 evasion, as well as obviously maxing offensive stats. That's another good thing. You can reapply gauge acceleration. You can apply more attack and special attack buffs. Actually makes this 2 out of 5 look really solid, I would say, just in general. And then again, Slippery buffing evasion and also debuffing enemy accuracy by 2 with the buddy move means that she's got a very solid chance of not being hit by the enemy. Not very solid, but pretty solid, which can then in turn activate Group Slapdash, which is her biggest method of buffing speed, meaning that our previous issue of having slow ground types, as usual, is a little bit more mitigated on top of also having gauge acceleration. So, on that front, I would say that Rika's 2 out of 5 is actually quite good. And on top of that, she's got X Special Defense NPR for obviously more special defense buffs. Natural Remedy, get rid of status conditions the first time they're inflicted. Ground Zone, attack move damage reduction just to help her tank even more damage. And then a few other minor abilities like Poison Guard and Water Guard, which could be relatively helpful depending on what like legendary arena you're fighting. I don't even know if we have a water type legendary arena. Do we? Is there a Grass Week legendary arena that I can't think of? There might be. I don't know. I can't think right now. I'd really have to think about that. I know Tornadus is weak to electric. Whatever. Either way. And then Poison as well. So that's nice in case we get any legendary arenas that are mostly prioritizing using water and poison moves. Engage Refresh on Sting is relatively nice, I guess, as well. So, I mean, if call me wrong, that's fair, right? I would say that utilizing Rika at 2 out of 5 is pretty viable, and she's still got 1 energy left after picking up all of this. Okay, you don't want natural. Okay, I would pick up Group Slapdash before I would pick up Natural Remedy pretty much all the time. So hey, that's cool. We still got 2 energy left here. Could pick up something. That's very nice. So very nice 2 out of 5 grid. Honestly, I legitimately think it's a pretty solid 2 out of 5 grid. Very nice. Moving Rika to 3 out of 5 here. She gets Endurance, Vigilance, X Special Defense all shielded, Noxious Hit, Ground Zone Team Condition Nullification, Ground Zone Extension, First Aid 4, and Team Sharp Entry. Team Sharp Entry is relatively helpful, but I mean, that's mostly useful in shorter content. So, of course, if you're in like a stadium battle and you need crit buffs by turn like 2 to be maxed for whatever reason, this is helpful there. But I think that's generally going to be not necessary because of her ability to max crit with relative efficiency because of Critical Squad anyway. Especially because I think she has so much more valuable stuff in the grid. First Aid 4 is just more healing, man. On top of Trash Tank, Initial Synchro Healing, the damage reduction on Ground Zone, her defensive buffs, her offensive debuffs potentially with this passive here, she's still got even more healing. It's insane. Rika is very, very defensive for sure. So if you think you can pick up the First Aid 4, could be helpful in case you somehow get Rika to low enough health. I think this is mostly going to be helpful in maybe like a legendary or something where you may need that burst bit of healing, but I think in like shorter battles, Rika's not going to need it. She's very defensive enough as is, in my opinion, but it's there. Ground Zone Extension is amazing, right? That does stack on top of the Field EX roll, meaning that if Rika, or alternatively, Variety Giovanni, were to sync with their Field EX roll, or Field EX, then you would get the extended sync from the Field EX on top of the extension from this Ground Zone here. That also does apply to her Buddy Move too. So she's got very good extension for Ground Zone, meaning that even in some longer battles, slightly longer battles, she will be very viable for keeping that up. And if you want to run her with Courtney instead of replacing Courtney, you can potentially pick up Earth Opening Sync on her grid in order to get that Ground Zone from Courtney, and you will never have to reapply it ever again, effectively, as long as Courtney is your main nuker, which, I mean, she should be. Her nuke's pretty good, and I mean, that's fair. And then Ground Zone Team Condition Nullification, preventing allies from being hit with status conditions, flinch, confusion, or trap. Pretty just generally helpful as well. I mean, that's nice for, Tornadus, any other legendary arena that sets like a status condition or a random like flinch or confusion or whatever. Like again, Tornadus, he sets poison. He can also randomly confuse you with Hurricane, and it can also burn you with that Heat Wave at the end. So you're just really taking out a lot of the RNG by picking this up, if at all applicable. She's also got Endurance, just a little bit more in the little bit more in her tanking ability. I don't think it's really worth it to pick up Endurance. I mean, if anything, just pick up First Aid 4 or just live without. Vigilance is pretty good if you do want to run her with like Head Start 1 or Adrenaline 1 as a lucky skill, or again, Initial Synchro Healing. Again, I think that's a pretty damn good lucky skill, so being able to still protect yourself against crits is very nice if you do want to get rid of her, if you want to change her lucky skill to something else that may be more suitable. Even stuff like Mind Games or Defense Crush, about equally as viable, right? So always opening up possibilities is very nice. Then X Special Defense all shielded, buffing ally defenses on top of special defense. This is nice. It does allow her to apply both defensive buffs to the team, which is extremely helpful for the entire team's tanking, and of course herself in any solos or duos she may be doing. Very nice just in general. This allows her to buff all core stats, being able to buff speed with Group Slapdash, defense and special defense with X Special Defense all and X Special Defense all shielded, and buffing both offenses off her trainer move, and of course buffing crit with Critical Squad and Team Sharp Entry. So Rika is able to buff all core stats. That's pretty fun. She's also got Noxious Hit, which lowers enemy attack and special attack when attacking a poisoned opponent. I actually did not notice she had this. That's very good. Being able to debuff both attack and special attack. You don't have to rely. That effectively removes the RNG requirement from her passive skill here on debuffing enemy stats. It just means that now if you want attack and special attack debuffs, you can do them by yourself. Very, very helpful for like a legendary gauntlet. She's gonna be god. She's gonna be a god in the gauntlet. Like even if you don't care that much about it, buffing special defense and defense and going for special defense all NPR, you've got +6 defenses in 3 turns. Cool. You poison the enemy, and then you've got Noxious Hit here, which debuffs enemy attack and special attack. They've got -6 offenses. You've got +6 defenses, on top of Trash Tank, Initial Synchro Healing, First Aid 4, Endurance, Ground Zone Attack Move Damage Reduction. Yeah, Rika's got all the abilities for not taking damage. It's pretty crazy. There's a lot of different ways you can run Rika, it depends on her partners. In terms of a general setup, without looking at her 4 to 5 and 5 to 5 tiles yet, I would definitely always pick up the Ground Zone extension, right? If I'm going to run her with any Ground Zone characters, I would definitely pick this up. I would also probably be willing to pick up Group Slapdash, instead of anything else for the most part. And then at this point, it would be a matter of if I want to reset for RNG for a few speed buffs, or if I want to just pick up Slippery and remove most of that RNG. If you do not feel like picking up Slippery and you just want to rely on Group Slapdash as is, you can definitely just pick up First Aid 4 here, and you'll be fine. You can get that good healing in. You can maybe then also pick up the team condition nullification if you know you'll be dealing with status conditions or status changes, or maybe pick up Vigilance if you want to run a different lucky skill with her, right? Again, Initial Synchro Healing, Head Start 1, Adrenaline 1, Mind Games 3, 2, no, Mind Games 2, Defense Crush 2, maybe, what's it called, Fast Track 2. Good lord. Hey, there's a lot of different viable options that are available to Rika, and of course you could also just go full defensive, right? Maybe pick up, if you don't even care about the ground zone and you're just trying to use Rika to be as defensive as possible, First Aid 4 is here, Vigilance is here, Endurance is here, Noxious Hit is also available and applicable. Jesus Christ, that's expensive. So that's all nice stuff for sure. I'd just get rid of Endurance, and then you can just invest energy from there, I guess. Either way, Rika's got a lot of good abilities for a lot of different game modes. She can be offensive with the ground zone setting and extension, as well as her attack and special attack buffing and physical and special moves next buffing. She can be great and she can be great to buff defensively with the special defense all and special defense all shielded, debuffing enemy attack and special attack. Very well-rounded support that can also cater to a specific group, being, you know, the ground types, right? Being able to be a very good ground type buffer. Going to 4 out of 5, because I'm pretty sure 4 out of 5 tiles are actually good. Yeah, Trainer Move, Brawn Gain, and Brain Gain. I would say going to 4 out of 5 is very good, because you can get yourself that buff from her Trainer Move, which is also being able to be utilized twice, potentially 3 times if you pick up Trainer Move NPR, and you can get a whole lot of physical and special moves next from this. This is effectively like Holiday Jasmine's Trainer Move, but applying to the whole team. Kind of, right? She's kind of like a more upgraded version, now I think about it, of Holiday Jasmine, just without the, like, potions. Because she's able to buff the defenses very well, she's able to apply team healing pretty well, applying gauge acceleration as well, offensive buffing still very solid, definitely better than Jasmine's, and of course applying the Brain Gain and Brawn Gain on her trainer moves as well. All very good stuff. Like, being able to apply physical moves next, outside of just the buddy move, just really increases her offensive buffing potential and makes the whole ground team a lot stronger. So that's definitely very, very nice. And it's better that Brain Gain's up here, because you're more than likely going to be going for Brawn Gain because of only having, I think, 2 relevant special attacking ground types, being Naomi and Lodge Rika. So, yeah. Going to 5 out of 5. 5 out of 5, please. She gets Adrenaline 1 and Recuperation 2. Good abilities for sure. Recuperation is going to probably be extremely strong in the Gauntlet for Gauntlet solos, probably replacing First Aid 4. Adrenaline 1 is solid for, you know, sync countdown purposes and whatnot. I would say that if you're a big Gauntlet person, Recuperation 2 is going to be extremely helpful, but outside of that, I don't think that her 5 out of 5 tiles are going to be very, very strong at all, because she already has enough tanking and healing ability to last in pretty much every other game mode for the most part, so I don't think Recuperation is going to be all that helpful outside of the legendary Gauntlet solos. So realistically, where should you go to Rika? Probably 4 out of 5 maximum. Even at like 2 out of 5 and 3 out of 5, I think Rika is still really good. Again, 2 out of 5 fixes a lot of the team gauge issues with Group Slapdash and Slippery and Trainer Move NPR. 3 out of 5 applies even more buffs like the Ground Zone extension, making the team's Ground Zone, for one, obviously extended and making it last longer. That's kind of how that works. That's redundant. And also applying defensive buffs, offensive debuffs, and of course the other few things that she has here. And then again, 4 out of 5 is just your magnum opus here with Brain Gain and Brawn Gain, and maximizing her ability to buff ally offenses with attack, ground zone, physical moves next, special attack, all of that stuff. And of course defensive debuffs in her passive skills here at base. So yeah, Rika is definitely a very, very good support character, very good for the ground type, very good just in general. She's like a miniature Neo Champion Rosa with her physical and special moves next buffing, and of course she can cater to one side depending on which one you pick up here in the grid, and just in general, I think she's a very good support for tank-wise, you know, all of her different abilities that have already been mentioned for taking less damage, and of course being able to buff both offenses and defenses. So she's a very good universal support, but also extremely helpful and very noticeably impactful to the ground type via ground zone and ground EX roll. definitely a good replacement for Courtney and Special Costume Lyra. I think her only issue, even all things considered, is the fact that her gauge management, at least early on, is going to be relatively inconsistent. And of course, picking up Group Slapdash does probably mean you want to pick up maybe Slippery, so that does leave some problems in the grid there. But I still think it is worth picking up and worth acknowledging that Rika is still really strong outside of that. Just that her only fault, in my opinion, is that her gauge might not be that great, just because Group Slapdash is relatively unreliable. But of course, if you can get a little bit lucky, you know, reset Fish for a few debuffs or something like that, or a few speed buffs or whatever, or bring another ally that can maybe help out with that via whatever means, then I think you're pretty much fixing all the problems Rika has. And outside of that, Rika is an excellent support. Definitely pretty top tier. Like, I'd say probably a top 10 support in general. Maybe top 5 if I were to think about it more. Maybe not. I don't know. Definitely top 10 though, for sure. And I definitely do like her, so that's awesome. I'll be doing daily discounts for Rika so far. Maybe later in the month I'll go for a full summon session. I'm not sure. It just depends how things go in real life. I'm not too sure, but yeah. I'll see y'all later. I hope y'all enjoyed. Let me know if you're going to be pulling for Rika and Clodsire down in the comments below. I'm sure a lot of people will be because she's a popular character. You know, logically so, and rightfully so. Definitely nice. So glad that she's finally in the game, and glad she's definitely very good. Poppy too, but we don't talk about Poppy. We'll talk about Poppy later, but whatever. I'll see y'all later. I hope y'all enjoyed. Good luck on your summons for Rika.